Welcome to our April 21st program. In dialogue, Gail Levin, Professor of Art History at Baroque College, and painter Sajitha or Shankhar. Tonight's event is moderated by Douglas Shear, ATOA co-founder, artist, and chairman emeritus. Before handing it over to Doug, I'd like to briefly introduce ATOA. Founded in 1974, Artists Talk on Art, has hosted and recorded over 1,200 events in audio and video, featuring more than 9,000 artists, educators, critics, curators, writers, and museum professionals. You can learn more about us by visiting atoanyc.org. All of our events are recorded, and to watch previous programs, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Legacy recordings, over 12,000 of them, are also hosted at the Archives of American Art at the Smithsonian Institution. And with that, I will hand it over to Douglas, please.
Thank you, Jenny. Gail Levin is Distinguished Professor of Art History, Fine and Performing Arts, American Studies, and Women's Studies at Baruch College and the Graduate Center of the City University of New York. The acknowledged authority on American realist painter Edward Hopper, she is the author of books and articles on this artist, including The Catalogue Raisonné and Edward Hopper, An Intimate Biography. Her work on 20th century and contemporary art has won international acclaim, been widely published, and translated in America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Articles range from theory of artist biographies to explorations of the intersection of American and Asian cultural studies. She has also written on the art of women artists in diverse historical contexts. Her frequent focus on women artists and Jewish artists led to biographies of Judy Chicago and Lee Krasner, and a major study of Teresa Bernstein. During 2015-16, Levin held a distinguished Fulbright chair in India and was a Fulbright specialist in Mongolia in 2019. She also shows her own artwork and publishes fiction. And now it's my delight to turn things over to Gail Levin. Go ahead, Gail.
Oh, I don't see myself in, that's fine.
We see you.
Okay, fine. Share my screen, and here we go. So thank you, Doug, and thanks for Artist Talk on Art. And I want to thank the Fulbright for sending me to India and other places, and I hope the program will continue to flourish. It's my pleasure to talk about the artist Sajitha Shankhar, who is with us tonight, for her, it's the middle of the night. It's tomorrow morning, like 5 a.m. So we really appreciate her being here. And she'll be speaking after I give a presentation about her work to introduce it to all of you. So here she is on the screen. I arrived in India in the fall of 2015 to hold a distinguished Fulbright chair without any expectation that I would ever write another biography, much less one about an Indian woman artist. But after meeting Sajitha in a chance encounter, I found her work and her story too compelling to resist. It is remarkable that Sajitha's intense life, she was born only in 1967, pulls together threads of my 3 previous biographies, a visual artist, but in a completely different cultural context. Edward Hopper's wife, Jo, whom he tried to force to give up on being an artist, the violence that he inflicted on his petite wife, the struggles of Lee Krasner, dealing with Jackson Pollock, an out-of-control artist husband, and the emphasis on women artists and feminism in Judy Chicago's art and career. Sajitha, like Hopper Krasner in Chicago, was also once part of an artist couple. And the autobiographical strain in her art has attracted journalists and critics who've both praised her work and argued that its significance goes beyond her own story. And indeed, I would argue, beyond her own country. So while Sajitha's art and life will resonate for women in India and elsewhere, it is not the story of most Indian women artists, but one that remains to be told. We can contrast Sajitha's struggle with the experience of Amrita Shergill. I'll come back to the map in a minute. The acclaimed writer, Sunil Khilnani, explains, quote, as usual in India, talking about Shergill, her gift was enabled by privilege, end quote. Though most often true for women artists who gain recognition, I want to, where do I, here, that's Shergill from the early 20th century. She died in 1941. So she came from a rather privileged background. In fact, she was only half Indian from her father's side, and her mother was Hungarian Jewish. So, and of course, a lot of her career took place in Paris. But unlike many of the women artists who gain recognition in India today, it is not the case for Sajitha that she comes from privilege. Her father worked, there he is, and there's Sajitha on the right as a young girl. Her father supported the family by working in a hospital as a medical technician. The family augmented his modest income by selling milk from its cow and goats, which Sajitha helped to deliver each morning before she left for school. This is a moment when she's photographed at a Hindu shrine on a special pilgrimage, and women at the age of 12 were not allowed to go there. So at the time, so Sajitha had a very rare experience. I want to just go back briefly to this map of India, and down here is Kerala, where Sajitha comes from. She married, we'll find out, a fellow from Tamil Nadu, where she went to live with his family. And when she's accused, she wins a fellowship to go to Paris, and she went to Paris. But some male artist in India accused her of really spending the time in Goa and only pretending to have gone to Paris. And of course, Delhi, where she goes on her own, and I'll talk about that in a minute, is way up here in the north. So it's a different time zone, a different climate, and a different culture here in the south of India. And Kottayam, which is her town in Kerala, is also where Arundhati Roy, the well-known Indian woman author of The God of Small Things that won the 1997 Booker Prize. She comes from Kottayam, as does Sajitha, and you can see there, Sajitha is just, 6 years younger than Arundhati Roy. And a lot of what you read in Arundhati Roy are some of the cultural traditions in which Sajitha grew up. And then very recently, the Lalit Kala Academy, which is really the National Academy of the Arts for India, in March, they presented Sajitha with the equivalent of a Lifetime Achievement Award. She's one of 2 artists that won a major fellowship and the only woman artist. And they are also, the Academy is the publisher of my forthcoming biography of Sajitha Shankhar, which I'm told will be out in about 2 months. And this is the citation from the Academy, and I'm just going to read it. I think it might be hard for you to read. Born in 1967 in Kumaranellore, Kottayam, so that's her specific village, which is different from where Arundhati Roy comes from. Sajitha R. Shankar is an integral presence in the national and international art scene. She has also been active in Kerala for the last few decades. After completing her studies in painting from the Tiruvananthapuram Fine Arts College, also known as Trivandrum, Sajitha decided to continue as a full-time painter. Such a decision was quite a bold one. In the second half of the 80s, it was significant that a woman becoming a full-time professional at a time when the art market or sponsors of art did not show any presence in Kerala or South India. In a society that marked women within the home in the precise dichotomy of home and nation, Sajitha ventured into the art scene with her women-centric paintings. Sajitha's career picked up in the Chola Mandal artist village in Tamil Nadu. That's the other province I showed you next to Kerala. Different language, they speak Tamil. She transcended the limitations posed by the patriarchal community there. Without getting discouraged, Sajitha succeeded in creating her own stance and place in the art scene. Sajitha has established an independent female identity in her paintings, one that is powerful and rebellious, emerging through swirls of lines and colors. Therefore, art history and sociocultural history have marked Sajitha as one of the pioneering feminist artists in Kerala. Sajitha, who has traveled and exhibited all over the world with series of paintings that reveal the various faces of female power, is considered an important artist from India. Sajitha, who is constantly connected with global art through a residency space called Gallery Art Center, based in Kerala, Trivandrum, is also an active presence in the cultural scene of Kerala. By awarding a fellowship to Sajitha R. Shankhar, the Lalitha Kalal Academy and the art and cultural community of Kerala are honored. And there is Sajitha at the Gallery Art Center, which she founded and raised money to construct. And there you see her on some of the cultural outreach to community and to local children, which is central to her life, as is her art. Okay. Let me see. So this then is the story of an unlikely woman artist whose work, seen here, this is part of the work, represented in the permanent collection of the National Gallery of Modern Art of India. Yet there was no context for Sajitha's ambition in her family and in the traditions in the south of India, as the Academy commented. Though women artists everywhere struggle to attain recognition in a world where men dominate, the hurdles are much greater in India. Expressing oneself as a woman artist is considered a challenge in itself. Like Amrita Shergill, Sajitha never doubted her creativity, and she both wrote and drew from an early age. From the days of her childhood, Sajitha merely followed her impulse to make visual images, even forced for a time to conceal her creative work from her stern father's disapproval. Upon marriage, Sajitha had to cope with cultural and interpersonal conflict, beginning with the diametrically opposed traditions of two neighboring states in South India. Sajitha grew up in Kerala on the southwest coast, where an influential social reformer rejected caste and promoted new values of social equality. Then the first democratically elected communist government, which lasted from 1957 to 2011, encouraged secularism and tempered patriarchal piety. Talented and ambitious in school, Sajitha, oh, I want to just mention quickly, here you see women throwing themselves on their dead husband's funeral pyre. That was in the 18th century. And of course, thankfully, the Hindu Marriage Act of 1955 put a stop to that practice pretty much. Now, talented and ambitious in art school, Sajitha, at the age of 20, this is just a little bit later, as you'll see this photo, figured that it was to her advantage to marry into a family of artists, where one such fellow from a little older than her, from the state of Tamil Nadu, presented himself at a conference. She discovered too late that only the men in that family could become artists because they were traditional Hindus who practiced strict ritual and lived in patriarchal households where women could have no careers and no lives outside the home. Within 2 months of their brief meeting, Sajitha was married, living with a stranger and his parents as his wife. Sajitha was in shock. It was another state, another language that she did not speak, her Malayalam to his Tamil, another much hotter climate, another culture, a conservative Hindu life, unlike anything she had known at home. Then the birth of a daughter made her loath to leave her troubled marriage until it became necessary for her survival. She gave birth in 1990 to her only child, Shilpi. More about her later. She's taken some of the photographs. Oh, she took the photographs that I showed you of the outreach activities with children at the Art Center. But Sajitha convinced her husband to move to the historic Cholamandal Artist Village in Madras, which she had visited on the All India tour as part of her art school education. Here you see Sajitha standing in front of her terracotta relief, sculptural relief, which I was able to see even though Sajitha and her husband no longer own the house on which she installed it. Okay. So the Cholamandal Artist Colony offered not only a local community of professional artists, but also the opportunity to meet many international visitors. So Sajitha's talent and her outgoing personality contribute to developing many friendships that soon led to national and international exhibition opportunities. Despite daunting challenges and a husband who didn't want her to go anywhere, this determined young artist began building what has turned into a stellar record of national and international shows and awards. I will say, although the award statement says she's shown worldwide, she is never shown in the Americas. And I hope somebody listening will change that soon. It's a great opportunity. But as Sajitha's career success grew, her relationship with her husband continued to deteriorate. And he was encouraging her to commit suicide, not an unusual husband's reaction at the time. And no, she replied to his morbid wish, I want to paint, she said. But she was suffering. And as I mentioned, male art critics falsely accused her in print of only pretending to have held the prestigious fellowship and art exhibition that she had won in Paris, and actually hiding out in Goa, the island off the coast of India. And her husband continued to use their daughter to force her to stay with them, despite his refusal to accept her career. She left them and soon concluded that she could not support herself with sales of artworks while living in Kerala. It was too provincial. She determined she had to move to Delhi, but she was without funds or other resources as she faced the anonymous Indian capital. She had only some artworks that she rolled up and hand carried on the train, and her talent to make more of them. But here you see her before she left in her studio at Cholamandal with her small sleeping daughter in the background as she worked, some of her early work. And here is her work in 1996, called The Power of Nostalgia. And there she is with her child. But eventually, Sajitha made friends through her art. And less than 2 years after arriving in Delhi, in 2009, she began the series she called Altar Bodies. Skipping ahead, this is Sajitha and her grown daughter, Shilpi, who's married, and her late father, whom you saw in that early photograph on the way to the Hindu shrine. Okay. So with Altar Bodies, her series still ongoing, she began with a small drawing seen here of a woman seated in yogic position, composed of bones but without any flesh. Beneath this figure are lines of poetry written in Malayalam, that you can see the script. Quote, "The rooms of the brain are too small. Whenever I try to sleep, I felt suffocated and felt like I was dying," end quote. This woman, Sajitha knows, cannot contain her thoughts, which are too painful. She must, through meditation, like Sajitha did, learn to live in the moment. Although through Altar Bodies, Sajitha says that she's exploring something beyond sexuality, beyond the exterior, the skin. What are the alternate possibilities, she asks. And this is one of the 9-paneled paintings from 2015 that she calls Altar Bodies. Drawing upon a remarkable resilience during a life of immense challenges, Sajitha has held fast to her creative goals. Her life circumstance created in her a natural response to feminism. She remarked in 2013 about the status of women in India. Feminism in India is very special. The Indian woman is quite different from women around the world. I've explored the Upanishads and epics to understand spirituality, philosophy, and India in a much better way, and it has helped me immensely, end quote. Sajitha says that she experiences this difference in gender and she explores it through her work, especially in her Altar Bodies series. She has reached this self-reflective place through meditation and yoga after a near-death experience, which we won't go into. However, we have images like this, and she says she's just begun. She has many possibilities to explore. She explores through her own body. I use my own body as a form. I started from my skull itself, the skull series. And she explains, quote, "My paintings do have a strong influence of Theyyam, that's a cult of folk religion with ritual dance known in Kerala." And she says, "and ritual arts. It could be the influence," she says, "of strong women figures, such as Kali, the goddess, or other vibrant goddesses, which is reflecting in my work," end quote. So Sajitha's art and work consistently unite the personal and the universal. I hope to share some of that tonight, and we're going to hear from Sajitha. My goals are to situate Sajitha in the international histories of feminist and postmodernist art, to provide a window into Indian and South Asian culture, and including details on the extreme challenges that women face, and to frame her, Sajitha's individual accomplishments as a female artist, a mother, and a grandmother, and as an inspiring community leader, and finally, to inspire others everywhere. Throughout, Sajitha's remarkable strength comes through in the paintings and other artworks that she's created. Her struggles were so extreme that her triumph is all the more astonishing. Her dreams stand in high relief against a background of Indian philosophy, gurus, yoga, and the struggle for social justice. That's 2007. This is the Alter Body series in 2008. Here she's working on a piece from that series called I'm Holding My Own Hand, and there's the finished painting from 2010. Now, this is Sajitha's only connection to American culture other than me or artists that she's admired. And that is when she met in India the playwright Eve Ensler and activist Eve Ensler at a meeting held at the YWCA Hall in Trivandrum, Kerala in early January 2013. They were gathered there for 1 Billion Rising, a global movement founded by Ensler working to end rape and sexual violence against women. The movement began in 2012 as part of the V-Day movement, which evolved out of Ensler's very popular play, The Vagina Monologues. Sajitha's friend, Anne Raja, a political activist from Delhi, was next to Eve on the stage. Later, she introduced Eve to Sajitha, telling her that she was a painter. When Eve asked Sajitha what her work was like, she pulled out a copy of the catalog, and there's Eve with Sajitha, for Sri. This is that opening in Delhi, and Sri means women in Sanskrit. Eve looked and at once asked to visit Sajitha's studio. Eve pointed out that they were both working with common purpose. She understood at once what Sajitha was doing in her work and bought 2 paintings. In London, on February 4th, 2013, Ensler performed her new piece, written in Kerala, quote, for the women in India who lead the way. In 2013, for 1 Billion Rising, Sajitha created the installation you see here. You see her working on. It's called Tantric Yoni, and it was commissioned by Ensler for Durbar Hall Ground in Cochin, Kerala. That's where the Kochi Biennale takes place today. The event's press release announced that the installation was, quote, symbolic of the inner strength of women, end quote. And on February 14th, at the break of dawn, as the sun wakes up the world, Sajitha would commence the creation of the Tantric Yoni, an installation on femininity using kumkum and turmeric, the red pigment, on the ground outside of Durbar Hall. The triangle, which might make some people think of Judy Chicago's dinner party, measured 27 feet on each side. And the symbolic installation is as abstract as Sajitha's work gets. Her art consistently has figurative references. In her own words, she expressed her credo, quote, what I continue to aim to communicate through my art are the problems of human existence, with particular emphasis on those encountered by women, the love, dreams, hopes, and sorrows of humanity. And that is the conclusion of my introduction. I want to conclude, though, and we'll come back to this, with a 2023 painting from the Alter Body series, again with the 9 panels. We might ask Sajitha why she likes 9. That has a name in Sanskrit. And thank you. And I want to welcome Sajitha now. And we have a question specifically for her. Sajitha, are you there? I can't.
Yes, yes, yes. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome and very deserving. Bring up my question.
Hello, Doug. Thank you.
Doug, I hope you heard that.
Oh, I thought, was that, did you say hello, Doug? Thank
Yeah,
you.
that's
Could I, let me suggest something before we go to Sajitha, just for context. Could you tell us a little bit about the Fulbright in India, your experience, um, what your intentions were about when you originally set out to go to accept the Fulbright, where you lived, how you lived, and then what took place that led you to meeting Sajitha, which I think is a very interesting and compelling story. So
Okay.
perhaps you could do that for a few minutes.
Okay. So
Okay.
my Fulbright was 4 months. It was this distinguished Fulbright chair. They were always 4 months. And I was due to go to Delhi, to Nehru University, when I read about the air pollution there in the season I was going. And I said, oh my God, I'll never survive. And I mean, I called people and they said, well, you can go out a little bit and you can wear a mask. I said, no, no. And I did research for the best air in India, and that's in Kerala. There are a lot of best in Kerala. They call it God's country. It's quite wonderful. But the Fulbright Association told me you won't meet any contemporary artists in Kerala. But there was an art college there, and that's where they assigned me. There were no women professors. And my project was supposed to be the influence of Indian art and culture, but the Indian visual arts on American art from, the beginning, in late 19th century to the present. So meeting Indian artists was kind of important. And I get there and I'm with my husband. And after a week in a hotel, they put you find your own apartment. We did. And it was like a high rise with a swimming pool, not quite like an American swimming pool, but okay. It was a nice neighborhood kind of outside of the center of Trivandrum. And we didn't have cell phones for security reasons. They made them difficult to get. We eventually got them, but we needed to go shopping and buy supplies. And we couldn't even, the idea of walking, a few city blocks in the dusty, very hot weather to find the auto rickshaw stand where you get a ride. It's not quite a taxi, but it's open air. Um, it was just overwhelming. And I look across the street, I see this man neatly dressed in white with gray hair and this shiny white car. And so I instinctively leave my husband, run over to him and say, excuse me, sir, do you think my husband and I could hitch a ride with you down to the auto rickshaw stand? He's headed right there. I don't think I'm going to be kidnapped. I think everybody in India is going to be friendly and safe. I just wanted to get out of the road and the heat. So he said, sure, jump in. So my husband comes over, we get in. I give him my business card and tell him why I'm in Kerala. And his immediate response is, and he lived across the street from our apartment house. He said, oh, I have a friend who's an Indian artist. Would you like to meet an Indian artist? And I said, yes, sure. And he said, I'll call you in a few days. We had no idea who this guy was and who the artist was going to be, male, female, we had no idea. He picks us up on a Sunday morning and we end up at Sajitha's home and she greets us and she's making these Indian pancakes, thin dosas. And her art is everywhere in her house and studio. And we just are very impressed, my husband and I both. And it was like the stroke of luck. And meanwhile, I'm going all over India to give lectures, but I keep coming back to Sajitha and learning more about her life story and her art. And it became too much to resist. So I abandoned my original project and said, I'm going to write her story. And that's what I did. And it turns out, well, she doesn't have a presence in America at all. And I don't think that I've not come across any dedicated biographies of Indian artists, certainly not Indian women artists, except for Amrita Shergill, who died in 1941, and is only half Indian, but is very important in India. It wasn't simple to get a publisher. And then the Lalita Kala Academy just really recognized Sajitha and decided to publish the book. and it's coming out in 2 months. And I think we're both really, hopefully, the Academy, Sajitha, and we're all thrilled. And so it seems like a wonderful miracle and a real serendipitous experience. And India is like that. It's a kind of, there's a magical component to it. And when you're on a Fulbright, you're really immersed in this foreign culture in a rather special way. And you have a perspective you can't get as a tourist. So I was constantly traveling around and lecturing to different universities and museums and meeting lots of Indian people and including Indian artists. And I will say I went to the Kerala Film Festival together with Sajitha, and of course I got much more out of it. Being there with her was quite fabulous.
Okay, now let's let Sajitha join in.
Okay, so Sajitha, I have the first question for you, and Doug, join in anytime you like.
Sure.
Sajitha, how has feminism as a global movement changed your relationship to the art world? Has it helped or hindered or not been a factor? I'm going to share my screen again. I have some pictures.
Shall I start?
Yeah.
So in my early years of artistic practice, if I found that feminist ideologies were powerfully taking shape. Women artists were transforming the art of the world. It gave me a lot of strength to imagine myself as an artist. The feminist art historical background of the 1970s in important in my formation as an artist in the late 80s. In America, Judy Chicago was raising the crucial question about the absence of women as artists in history. Same time, Guerrilla Girls activist posters raised the feminist polemics of representation in art world, establishments like museums and galleries. Artists like Georgia O'Keeffe, Kathy Kollwitz, Paula Modersohn Becker, Frida Kahlo, and Amartya Shergill in India were all brought into a new historical light by the feminist historians in the 1970s and 80s. All these were catalysts to my latent spirit for self-expression as a woman in 1990s. I felt that I am not alone in this world. All this historical churning of women art history was a support system for me. First as a young girl and then as an art student in the College of Fine Arts in Kerala, South India.
So, Sajitha, thank you. What was the situation like in Kerala, and how did it change in response to feminism? And I'm just going to share my screen again because,
Okay.
whoops.
Not only the modern art world, my immediate environment in Kerala was also changing thoroughly in those times. With women writers like Sarah Joseph creating collectives, the legendary Malayalam writer Madhavi Kuti, known as Kamala Das for the English audience, was personally very close to me, like an elder sister. My connection with the powerful dancer Chandralekha was also uniquely inspiring. They were all great feminine forces in my life. They were compassionate about my struggles in my personal and social life to go ahead and make a mark.
How many women were in your class at the Arts College in Trivandrum, Kerala? And how were you treated there? Were there any women professors at that time? I know that I didn't find any at the Art College in 2015.
In the early 80s, 1980s, I was the only girl student among male students in the Fine Arts College studios. So right from the beginning, I was not a girlish girl. I had an inner power that could not be tamed by disciplined femininity. I also deeply wanted to make art. So I was not afraid of anything. There was a good friendship with the male students in my class. So gender discrimination did not work out in my art student life. I didn't become yet another man to join the male group. Actually, I realized more about the gender conflicts through a close association with them. So uh, men were a mask of masculinity in their daily interaction. The attraction that women have for them is actually for their masculine power. So that drives her into a subservience and a state of deep freeze. But I could overcome the masculinity of my male classmates. So there are many feminine qualities in men that they usually conceal with their mask, and they become male chauvinists. In the beginning of any relationship, men wear this mask. So one should ignore this. So one should only communicate with the feminine qualities. So if women do it, a few of these men will remove this mask of in front of us. So we need to discard those men who do not discard their gendered mask. Since I was capable of communicating with their feminine aspects, so I could make good friendships with them. So the truth of femininity is incomprehensible to many people. So they objectify women. So we have to transgress the level of narrow understanding. So in my early years, I could do it. So in any creative field, women need good relationships. Even as a girl brought up in a Kerala village, I could make so many relationships with well-read people, cultural activists, writers, artists, filmmakers, and all. So we were well connected with modern knowledge from all over the world. So lots of libraries and enlightened working class characterized 20th century Kerala, a speciality of the place I am born into. So that is why I was so exposed to the feminist movement and its development all over the world.
Thank you.
I have a question if I
ahead.
could insert one. Around 1989 or 90, Artist Talk on Art did a panel that was composed of four artists from South Africa, two of whom were Western. I don't know their exact derivation, but they were white South Africans. And the other two were black native South Africans of some tribe or another, or different ones. And it was interesting that the native South Africans, they all could have been native, I mean, born in South Africa, but the traditional South Africans were making what I would call westernized global art. And the white South Africans were making very much nativist sort of art, almost tribal in its appearance. I'm wondering whether, as an Indian artist, uh, I guess the question goes to both your training and then also as your art matured and you matured. Um, did you find something like that? Did you find a compulsion to some degree to make more westernized art? Or do you find yourself still very much grounded in more traditional Indian art?
It's a question to me, or
That's
Yes.
for you.
yeah, I didn't get it
All right,
exact.
I'll try to simplify a little bit. So, I think for many artists from other parts of the world, other than the West, other than America or Western Europe, um, where they're coming from a very traditional culture and a very traditional practice of art, uh, that when they come to the West or in the desire to go to the West to show art, etc., they feel compelled to make more westernized art rather than strictly their traditional art. And has that been an experience that you've had?
Um, So for my case, actually, when I studied in College of Art, actually there was, we were referring into many European and American art a lot.
Uh-huh.
So actually, my process took place in that way. I took that, that freedom to explore my art.
Starting in art school.
Yes, yes,
Uh-huh.
in college. Yes.
Gail.
Sajitha, who makes art today in India? Is it affected by class or caste? For example, how has the movement toward de-Brahman less emphasis on Brahmanism in art impacted the Indian contemporary art scene? How does equality affect what goes on in Kerala, for example?
Definitely. An affluence rules in art today. Global capital market of art inspires people across class and caste to try their luck in art. So earlier it was not the case. Our society was closely tied with cultural renaissance, progressivism, and intellectualism. So we had revolutionaries like Sri Narayana Guru as driving forces. In art, most of our progressive movements cut across caste and class. So many noted modern and contemporary artists, besides filmmakers from India and from Kerala particularly, are from backward castes. But caste discrimination has been subtly existing in the rule of the capital affluence today. It looks like there is no discrimination, but it exists. Today, people with lesser resources are getting the dignity of an artist's life, and they do get represented in contemporary art, provided they follow the rules and tastes of the affluent class that rules the art world today. So, as far as I understand, the de-Brahmanization you mentioned in your question is going on here actually as a resistance to the rule of this caste and class affluence that still rules the art world. So there is a strong subaltern politics in the art of quite a few young artists. They critically deal with these affluent capitalist forces in contemporary art in their own ways. So they create their own space and freedom to address caste politics.
Thank you.
So I have a question for both of you, actually, as an artist and as an art historian, like, from your perspectives. So I have a sort of I've noticed that the way that your art has been talked about, Shankar, is that it's still within the Western framework. The influence, the European influenced, North American artists like Judy Chicago, and the feminist movement. It's still within the methodology of a Western centric kind of at core. So has there in our history have experiment in our history as a discipline, as an academic discipline, branched out into some other kind of methodology? I know post-colonialism, but that is still within the Western framework. So perhaps it's a little bit of a self-reflective question: is how do you actually write something when your perspective is Western, and then yours from a woman who is Indian. So how do you reconcile the two? And do you, for the artist, how do you think there's possibly another way of talking about your work in a different context, political, or like Doug said, a sort of a vernacular structure, and also as an art historian, how do you actually decentralize from the Western framework?
Well, I can answer that. I don't pretend to have an Indian perspective. I write from a Western perspective. I'm a Western, an American art historian, but I'm very well traveled all across Asia, and not just as a tourist. I've had Fulbrights in Mongolia, India, and Japan, and multiple trips to Asia, many, 15 in Japan alone, and more than this one in India. This was not my first trip to India. But I would be fooling myself if I thought I could have an Indian perspective.
Yeah.
I think that if we waited for an Indian perspective for someone to write about Sajitha, particularly because she's not a native Hindi speaker. She speaks Malayalam. She comes from Kerala in the south. They are very overlooked, I found. And so it's a kind of rescue operation or operation to introduce an artist from Kerala to the rest of India and to the West. I expect that my book will have some impact in India because readers are going to find out more about an artist growing up in Kerala.
So
And
I guess my question was not so much a personal sort of your perspective. Of course, we can't escape ourselves. Is that in the discipline of art history, is there a different alternative methodology besides, the one that I've been trained in, that the ones that I know, I'm sure a lot have changed in the 5-10 years that I last wrote my thesis. So I'm just interested because I know, I mean, of course, it's ridiculous to try to write something that's not from your own perspective. It's inescapable. But I guess I'm asking about overall as a discipline, an academic discipline, are we continuously looking for a different methodology except for what is existing?
well, I welcome other people to find that methodology, but I have to use the one that I'm familiar with. That's what I could do. And I think it's going to be effective. But I hope this will be the first of many books and many approaches to women artists from Kerala, to artists from Kerala, and to Sajitha. So I'm not ruling out what you're suggesting. It's just not something I can offer.
Right. Yeah. I wasn't asking, for you to write another book or anything on the methodology. I was just thinking, is there a different way of guiding a conversation? And to me, a good artist and a good art is that it can be looked at in many different perspectives, and it's still there is something that we couldn't.
From Sajitha on this.
Yes, I know. That's that's what I was also asking. I asked both of you, and as an artist, how, what is your feedback on the way your work has been talked about and written about?
For me, art is a universal language, what I feel, and I express through it. And my perspective is actually, my recent works are very much like a celebration of femininity. So because I had gone through of course I'm a victim of patriarchal system, the whole system universally. And I feel I can express all these. And now actually I think I like to talk through my works, to the universe.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's not
visual.
limited to it. It's not limited. It's a very it's a wider perspective. And
Exactly.
I'm still a searcher. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I understand. I know what you mean. That's what I was kind of pointing to that I saw in your artwork. It's, it's a femininity, it's, and there's also other things, your environment that influences you, and that what makes you I don't know. I found, I'm not trying to be grandiose. I'm just trying to find, different ways of talking about your work. Perhaps there's something we're missing or I am missing as I'm looking at them. Mark Chagall, I think one of your influence, or maybe Gail, you wrote about it. Her
Yes.
influence.
Yes, I was influenced by Mark Chagall and yes, Kathy Kollwitz and yeah, all these humanistic artists. But I think, and every artist, I think the beginning, the process, they get into certain influences, and slowly it will disappear. And yeah, real work will come. Yep.
I would like you to talk about violence against women in India and how that affected you so deeply. And I'm thinking of dowry disputes, your own autobiography, your own life, how you returned your part of your dowry, your gold bracelets, back to your parents that they'd given you as dowry when you married. Could you talk about this work too?
Okay, I think this question is perfect for this work which you are showing now. So my 1996 work titled Darkness at Noon. So so this work was a landmark in my life. So that was when gang rapes had taken place in Suryanelli, Kerala, and was widely in the news. So my work painfully and politically depicted the violence that women face both at home and public domains. So art critics called in the Indian Guernica when it was exhibited in an exhibition called Beauty by Mistake held in Germany. So patriarchal violence has many forms. The rampant dowry system and domestic violence against women was also a personal experience for me. On the very next day after my wedding, I returned the gold given as a dowry by my father. So I did not ask for any permission from my sorry. So I told I did not ask for any permission from my husband's family. I told my father that he was given me the necessary education, so that is enough. So I felt that it is not my kind of life if I took any dowry. So this decision was questioned at my marital home. Problems started there. So there was a Brahminical way of life at that house. So you always had to sit on the floor and have food while the men were sitting on the chairs. In short, personal was political for me. So my art was driven by this politics, particularly in those times of my life. I was not privileged as an artist. I was not protected from the problems faced generally by most Indian women. I was in a transition period when, as a woman who tried to think and act intellectually, had such strong tides within. I was hiding all these things from my parents for almost 12 years. So, Darkness at Noon was a work that happened at that time.
And Sajitha, this is the work that you won a prize for in England, and it was purchased for the Cleveland Gallery, a public collection. It's called Women in Reality. Could you talk about this and also talk about this in relationship to traditional customs that you encountered in Tamil Nadu, where you went to live as a young bride? And talk about the struggle you went through to become an artist in that environment.
Gail, actually, all my these drawings are very autobiographical. Actually, this is the real situation which I was facing in Tamil Nadu. That women everywhere, no, 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 not to do that, not to go there. Even there is no freedom for sexuality. There is no freedom for anything. Even to creativity, reading. So even my experience is like all my books were burned by my husband's family. So like I never had it. So this is actually the women and reality. Actually, this is it's all evolved from my own personal experiences.
Wow.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah.
I have a question for both of you or either of you to give us, those of us who are in the West, a sense of scale. Um, do you have an idea of how many professional artists, male or female, from whatever caste or any background, there are working in India? what kind of numbers are we talking about that professional artists working in India?
There are more than 2,000 practicing artists in Kerala. So a small part of
2000
India.
and,
It's a small part of India. So India is a
right.
big country. In the 1970s, most of the artists like Raza, Vishwanathan, etc. went to Paris. So artists like Anish Kapoor and a few others went to the UK. So, but now the scene is different. Now so many artists are settled in India and working from here. So what I feel is a lot of foreign artists are coming to India and finding
Mm.
artistic and professional reasons to settle down here. So huge amount of art sales are happening in New Delhi. So as far as the information goes,
So Delhi and Mumbai would be the two big centers.
yes, yes.
And also, I'm sure that we're curious to know, I am, the number of galleries, perhaps, professional galleries in India, and art museums.
Yes. Yeah, we have many, especially in metropolitan cities like Delhi and Mumbai. We are having very good museums and galleries coming up now. They like Kiran Nadar Museum and NGMA and a lot of galleries. Even a lot of professional galleries are coming up now.
Hmm.
Yep.
Sajitha, talk about the National Gallery of Modern Art and how it's in more than one place.
Hmm.
Yes. Actually, National Gallery of Modern Art. It started in New Delhi, and so I can't remember the year where when it starts. Actually, even my works also there in permanent collection. So they are collecting contemporary art, only contemporary art, and it's on permanent display. And in Bangalore also there is a branch for South Indian artists.
And that's a big technological center.
Right, Bangalore. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sajitha, this is a photo I'm showing now of you in Germany. Can you talk about your experience exhibiting outside of India? Who did you meet in Germany? How did you get there? How did you get started? That's really quite a leap for a young.
Yes, actually, in I think 1995, I received a Charles Wallace Award from UK. So I think, yeah, 1995. So when I was in UK, after my research from Newcastle, I decided to go to Germany because actually those days my works were collected by German buyers. So one of my buyer called Inge Ringelsip, she invited me to come to Bochum. So I went there and I stayed with her in Germany. And Inge was actually the next day when I visited. The next day she brought me to an exhibition of Gunter Grass. So there, Gunter Grass was showing his lithographs and etchings exhibit. I never seen. I only read Gunter Grass. The first time I was happy to see his drawings in the particular gallery, and so there I met Grass there, and I showed. I was only one Indian there, and I showed my works to him. And actually, he's the person. He and his friends introduced me to Germany, in Europe itself. Yeah, and he asked the galleries to show my work next, so I had a show there also. So after that I met another artist called Oscar Goldsen Leuchter in Bochum. He's a feminist poet and printmaker, mainly woodcut. So I got a chance to work with him in Germany, in his studio. So I learned Holzschnitt, the woodcut there with him.
And I will say that I was privileged to interview for my book on Sajitha, artist in Britain, Germany, and Spain with whom she had worked. So that was a very, and then I also met people who from America who knew her in Sri Lanka at an artist camp. They have these camps. And I also heard about her experience in Japan. So she really did venture out of India with a lot of courage, I would say. And then I would like to point out this is the cultural minister. Sajitha, is he from Kerala, from the national politician?
No, he was a chief minister in Kerala. His name is E.K. Nayanar. When he was visiting Germany, he came to my studio in Bochum, and he inaugurated my exhibition there in 1996.
So it's really remarkable that Indian politicians get involved with culture. They help to promote it. I would say we don't have that situation in America from any party, but in India, it's a commonplace to have prominent politicians visit art openings and inaugurations, as they call them. And Sajitha, you want to tell us a little bit how you happened to show at the Indira National Center for the Arts in New Delhi and what this
Yes, this is called Archetypes and Alter Bodies, and it's a kind of like a retrospective exhibition. Exhibited the Archetype series and Alter Bodies there, and it was it was connected to International Women's Day in 2013.
And there we see the scale of these works is huge. It's really quite remarkable.
Yeah, I can. This is actually, I did a series on Akka. There is a saint lived in Karnataka 200 years ago. She was a poet, and I did a series on her poems. Her name is Akka Mahadevi. So these works are from that series. It's mainly from women archetypes.
Good. So looking at some of your earlier work, as seen here, this is already, you're only 20 years old. We see purely representational paintings and drawings, and they sometimes look more like, say, German Expressionism or other Western art. How did you, well, we've mentioned that you came across these artists already as a student in art school. What made you transition? Can you talk about your progress to this from 1994, Woman in Nature, and this from 1996, Days and Thoughts, and then this from the Archetype series in 2007? Want to just talk a little bit about your development as you see it?
Yes, actually, where I started working with very autobiographical, and so like a daily sketches. Those days, actually, it's like my diary. I was working all the time. These are very happy drawings, my childhood drawings, and it's about relationships and friendships, and it's all about human I'm connected with the people and things like that, and it's become it was kind of a narrative uh, diary kind of things, and slowly my work actually this is actually the reality of my home, like it's like a women nature, and so the men sitting there and yeah, so that patriarchal thing which I faced in the family, and yes.
Do you want to tell the story about when your father discovered you were winning prizes as a young girl for your art in school?
Yeah, those days actually, I was good in studies. So my father wanted to become an artist or engineer. So those days, in 80s, so if you are studying good, okay, you should become a doctor or engineer. That was parents' dream. But other than that, actually, he doesn't know that I was painting or drawing. So once actually I was hiding my gift present from the competition. So he found out and he was asking questions and he was beating me at home. And so when I came back to school, I told my teacher that, see, these things happen. My father is scolding me. And so then my sister, my convent teacher, Eucharist sister, she said, can you ask your father to come here? And when my father came, actually she showed all my presents which I got from the those days I was writing poetry, I was writing a story, and a lot of things. And I was a arts girl in my school, and my father doesn't know all these things. And she told him that, so Sajitha is doing all, she's drawing well, she's painting well. And then my father got a shock. Why she never told me all these things. And then from there he started encouraging me that, yeah.
I think that's quite a remarkable story. And I don't know if people understood you went to a private school taught by nuns from, were they Irish?
Yes,
Uh,
Marcellus Convent School. Yes, I was studying in a convent school, and the sisters were actually encouraging me.
And this was from a Hindu family, and your parents sent you there. There was no public school, right, for girls.
uh,
Yes, only for girls. No, so we had a government schools. That's mixed schools were there, mixed school.
But your parents chose to put you in the private school.
Yeah, put me in a girls' high school.
Okay. And let's see. As you move on in your development, you tended toward more less figurative, a little more abstract, but still relation. And to what extent are you involved with moving away from Western influences and more involved with Indian cultural traditions and documents and so forth?
So art was a window through which I threw out all these negative emotions and my sufferings. So people started telling me that my works were feministic. Though I painted the issues of a gang rape in a series, I was finding myself through that. So I was sleepless in the days when I was reading the newspapers reports of the gang rape. I was reading those reports that were swelling with the pain caused by domestic violence. So I was tortured physically and mentally. So, as a village girl who was married to another home, I was not allowed to drink a glass of beer. But my days were enriched by a few cheerful hours spent with the eminent dancer Chandralekha in Madras. So, in fact, poet Kamala Das advised me to escape from these problems by getting a sound sleep after a peg of whiskey. So, they were all strong feminists who stood with me. So, these two creative women were also victims of the patriarchal system, and thus they were pro women.
Sajitha, can you tell what Kamala Das's advice to you was when you went to England, how to protect yourself, and talk about who you met on your first trip to England and what influence they had on you?
You mean actually when I got a scholarship in UK, that so I went because me and Kamala Das, we were very close, and I went and told her that I got this scholarship and I'm going to UK. And she said, okay, when you go to UK, she presented me a parda. parda, the Muslim women wear that black parda, and she gifted to me that, and she said, "Okay, you should wear when you go for a walk in the evening. You should wear this because it's you cover the whole body." And so I had a very long hair those days. And she was always says, so if you ask somebody about your thing, you always tell men that you are a lesbian. That was and she was, she in a very because I'm a young girl, and she was protecting me, she advised me, don't tell men that you are, you always tell people that you are a lesbian. So that is
By the way, was a poet and a story writer. Sajitha tried to meet her in art school, and she had no time for Sajitha. Then she discovered Sajitha's art and became very interested in it, and they became friends later. But Sajitha used to, how did you travel? Kamala Das, oh, and Kamala Das was Hindu, born Hindu. She converted to Islam. But how did you travel to meet her and have these meetings with her when you were living in Cholamandal and married?
It was like a battery charging for me. That every month I used to visit her because, of course, my family life was very exhausted, and once in a month I usually visit her. And see, she is very elder to me, but intellectually we were very good in wavelength, so we were communicating very well. And she's a very well-read person, and as a creative woman, like. You need we developed a certain very intellectual friendship between us. And it was I know I usually come in the morning and I stay with her till in the evening, and I go back to Chennai. So that was my routine. And we were three people, like another poet friend called Balachandran Chulikad, and I call her Ami and me. We sit together and we cook together, we eat, and we discuss about books and poetry and art and all. And also, yeah, it was a very interesting meetings. Yeah. And she passed away now. She's no more. Yes.
Gail, may I suggest that since we have maybe 10 minutes, that
Yeah,
we try to let people unmute and make comments directly.
right,
So
sure.
those of you that would like to actually say something, either make a comment or pose a question, I invite you to unmute yourself and do so. Don't be bashful.
First of all, thank you so much. This was wonderful. And just wanted to make a comment. The story of Gail meeting you with this driver that took you there is just absolutely hysterical and very serendipitous. It was quite something, Gail, to just find this fabulous artist
Right.
through this driver. I mean, this is amazing. It was just amazing to me. Anyway, I just wanted to make that
I feel
comment.
very fortunate. It really made my entire experience in India
Right.
quite wonderful.
Right. Is there anyone else?
I guess it's Roz here, Roz Diamond. Wow, beautiful work and so strong and so original and different. And thank you, Gail, for bringing this to us. I know you've been working on this a while. Just kind of echoing what was just said is the serendipity of it. And in a way, I think it's very kind of inspiring to artists, like you can do all the right things or try to, follow the trends, or I never have, but I have to say that it just shows how, listen to the interruptions and follow your heart. And Gail, she meets this artist in this different place, and she recognized her greatness, which is pretty obvious. I would say I'm really quite so impressed with your work, and I so hope that it gets to be known on a larger scale. I it's funny how cycles go, you know, in the United States, we're probably more repressive. Well, I don't know if we're more repressive than India, but I wonder if you have any thoughts about how you look at the world now as opposed to when you started, because we always feel, you know, I was part of the feminists and up everything that we fought for in the United States, and so much of it is being turned back. And when you look at history, this is the cycle of history. And I wonder how, Sajitha, you see it in India or globally, you know, if you have a perspective to share.
Thank you.
I guess she's not going to comment on that.
That's all right. It's great. Your work is
Well,
wonderful. It's great.
I have one more other thought I just wanted to pass along about your association, Gina, with well, or I should say your love of Kath Kollwitz, and I really see that, especially in the earlier works, and I see it so much in those drawings that just the look and feel. Um, are you aware of those kind of things when you were making the work?
No, actually, when I went to Frankfurt Museum and Düsseldorf Museum, uh, but I read about her when I was in college in my library. My library was really good in Trivandrum College, so I got to know. But when I saw her work, the real works in Frankfurt Museum and Düsseldorf Museum, I fell in love with her and drawings, and so I was doing a lot of charcoal drawings, you know. So it's yeah.
Thank you.
I'd like to turn it over to Chenny and just say before I do how honored I am to meet you, Sajitha. What a pleasure. Thank you so much.
And Doug, I would like to thank you and everyone else at Artist Talk on Art. And I would like to thank Sajitha for being Sajitha, for making her art, for making my time in India, but also for getting up so early in the morning.
Yes, definitely. Uh-huh.
Can I ask a question, a quick question of Sajitha?
Go ahead.
So I'm just curious because I have a few people in India through Instagram who I talk with and a couple of Indian friends, and they tell me that India has changed a lot, like the
Yes.
position of women and just the culture and everything, and you know, the amount of engineers and wealth and all of that. How has that changed your life and influenced you?
Yes, yes. Even so, you can see me. I am very happy woman now. So it's
Yeah.
evolved. I'm the most happiest woman now, and I evolved. And also, I'm making a lot of different. My works also changed. So I think the a lot of the human figures are disappearing, and a lot of organic images are coming into my work very. And also, I am very much into activism, also working for women and children. So, because out of my experience in my life, and we are all actually who are successful in art and literature, we are all doing a lot of work for society also now.
That's
Yes.
great for the society.
It's
Jenny?
wonderful.
I have a quick question too, if I might. I'm Penny Dell, not
Penny
David.
Dell.
And it has to do with, you as, in the sort of arc of history, you, we know your inspiration and we know how you developed. And I wondered if, young people who are following in your path. And I'm thinking of Lalit Kala Academy as a great learning institution, and what you must represent there. And do you teach courses at Lalit Kala?
No, actually, Lalit Kala Academy is it's a kind of they are helping artists, and I was a executive member there last year, and now I'm not. But yeah, it is actually lots of artists are actually getting help from Lalit Kala Academy. Our academy is doing very good, actually. So this I'm in this art field for past 40 years now. And of course, I'm also a victim of patriarchal system in Kerala, but now actually, I ignored that and working on, and now actually, it's very late. I got recognition from my state recently.
And I should explain, Lalita Kala Academy is more like our National Endowment for the Arts or New York State Council on the Arts.
Uh-huh.
But you can also study there, and I know because I did.
No, this is not a school or academies. Actually, they are organizing art camps and exhibitions and art interactions. It's true. It helps artist journey. The professional contemporary artists, and they are in academy is doing very well. And we have we are getting little fund, and so we are managing it.
So, do you have a person of young artists that you're seeing as the future of India?
Yes.
A great talent that is coming of age in India, perhaps one of your students.
Yes, very much actually. I have a lot of students actually. I'm giving teaching also. And I have an institute called Gauri Art Institute. Actually, my studio is in the forest, in the river bank, and so I converted it as a institute. And my way of teaching is also different, and not like art colleges. And people are coming there, and I'm giving them. I teach art. Actually, I apply art therapy also. So my way of teaching is like that. It's not only becoming an artist, to become a good human being. To how to So that's a process, and I have a lot of students. I have disables a lot.
Uh-huh.
We have one more question. I think, John, did you have your hand raised?
Was just going to say that this is so a privilege. I'm so grateful to you for putting making this possible, and letting us hear this progress that Sajitha has made. She's flourishing so well, and it's such a privilege to see her and to hear this whole story again. I just wanted to say that we were there and finding those paintings, even on the floor, some of them, and now this story is wonderful, and Gail has been heroic putting this all together. And bless her heart and bless Sajitha's heart. And thank you for putting this together. Doug, thank you.
You're welcome. And Chenny.
Oh, yes. Okay. Well, thank you all for being here. I'm just really closing. And our next event will be a week from now on the 28th, called A Career Involving. And please visit our website, and hope to see you soon. And thank you very much for participating.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you.